All right, today we're jumping into a geopolitical puzzle that has huge consequences for the whole world. India's high-stakes balancing act right in its own backyard. This is a story of ancient rivalries, nuclear standoffs, and, of course, a rising dragon that's changing all the rules of the game.
So how do you do that? I mean, really think about it. For India, this isn't some academic question, it's their day-to-day reality. Their neighborhood is this tangled web of shared history, deep rivalries, and massive strategic importance. And getting this puzzle right, well, it's the difference between regional stability and constant conflict. It's the difference between economic growth and a permanent security crisis.
To really get what's happening now, we have to look at the past. India was basically handed a tough hand from the start. You've got these colonial-era borders that were drawn without much thought, and they've been fueling conflict ever since. On top of that, there's this deep mistrust that has pretty much paralyzed regional groups like SAARC. So this is the incredibly complex chessboard India has to play on.
Okay, so with that difficult hand, what's the game plan? Well, over the years, India has developed a specific playbook, and today, it's known as the Neighborhood First policy.
And you can literally trace how their thinking has evolved right here. You start with Nehru's sort of family approach, then you move to Indira Gandhi's much more assertive realism. Each step was a reaction to what was going on in the world. But the real game changer, the one you've got to pay attention to, was the Gujral Doctrine in 1996. It really set the stage for everything that's happening now.
Now, this Gujral Doctrine, it was a pretty radical idea for its time. It basically said that India, as the biggest country in the region, should give to its smaller neighbors without always expecting something back in return. The goal wasn't just a transaction. It was about building a real relationship based on trust. And that core idea, non-reciprocity, is still the philosophical heart of India's policy today.
And that brings us to the modern Neighborhood First playbook. It stands on these 4 pillars that are all connected. It's a strategy where helping a neighbor develop their country strengthens your diplomatic ties. Building new roads and power grids, that's connectivity, makes the idea of a unified region a real thing. The whole point is to turn India's huge size from something that might seem threatening into a massive opportunity for everyone.
But of course, no strategy happens in a bubble. And India's playbook is being constantly tested by the single biggest factor in the region, the enormous and growing influence of China.
And right here, you can see 2 fundamentally different visions for how the region should work. India's approach is more consultative. It's about shared growth. China's Belt and Road Initiative, on the other hand, is all about massive, state-driven projects that expand its own influence. It's really a contrast between partnership and power projection. And that has the whole world worried about things like debt trap diplomacy and national sovereignty.
So to compete with China's massive wallet, India is offering a different kind of deal. It's put out over $15 billion in what are called soft loans. That's money with really low interest rates and long repayment periods. This isn't just aid, it's a strategic move. It's designed to give its neighbors another option, a more sustainable partnership-based way to grow.
And the stakes here are just incredibly high. China's growing footprint creates direct challenges for India. We're not just talking about economic competition. We're talking about strategic encirclement, pressure on traditional friendships, and the very real danger of debt trap diplomacy. I mean, just look at what happened with the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. This is the real-life geopolitical chessboard.
So beyond the big power competition, the region is just full of these long simmering flashpoints, these internal tensions that are always threatening to boil over.
And one of the most dangerous of these is state-sponsored terrorism. This is the idea of using proxy groups to fight an indirect war. For decades, India has accused Pakistan of supporting groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba to carry out attacks on its soil.
This quote right here perfectly sums up India's official position. It's a clear red line. They're basically saying that for any real diplomatic progress to happen, the threat of terrorism has to be off the table. As you can imagine, this has been a huge stumbling block, especially in relations with Pakistan, and it just keeps feeding that cycle of deep mistrust.
And then you have the borders themselves. I mean, just look at this table. India has to manage all of these sensitive, active territorial disputes at the same time. This isn't just a challenge for diplomats, it creates a 2-front security nightmare, with nuclear-armed Pakistan on one side and nuclear-armed China on the other. Every little border skirmish could potentially ignite a much larger conflict.
So, with this difficult history, the rise of China, and all these constant flashpoints, what's the path forward? Well, it's not about finding one perfect solution.
It's about mastering a continuous, strategic balancing act.
And this is really the key takeaway. The solution for India is this non-stop, dynamic balancing act. It means you have to blend diplomacy with security, economic partnerships with strategic alliances, and a regional focus with global outreach. It's all about being nimble and being able to move in multiple directions at once.
So what does that balancing act actually look like? Well, it means using more flexible groups like BIMSTEC to get around the gridlock in the bigger organizations. It means strengthening partnerships like the Quad with the US, Japan, and Australia to balance out China's power. It means building those connectivity projects faster, while at the same time pursuing patient diplomacy to cool down tensions. And all of it has to be backed up by a strong, assertive security posture. It's a strategy of pushing on all fronts, all at once.
And this brings us to the final, defining question. If India can successfully navigate this incredibly complex neighborhood, is it just about managing threats, or is it an opportunity to do something more? Can India's grand strategic balancing act allow it to not just react to its environment, but to actively shape it? The answer to that is going to determine whether India simply remains a regional power, or if it becomes the architect of a whole new future for South Asia.